Also, in the interest of time saving, I'll chant the verse. So one of the gentlemen and then one of the ladies chant, and we'll launch on to the class. Okay. So word by word and translation for text 42, second canto, chapter 9, answers by citing the Lord's version. Māyām, energies, vividiṣan, desiring to know, viṣṇu, of the personality of Godhead, māyā-īśasya, of the masters of all energies, mahā-muniḥ, the great sage, mahā-bhāgavato, the first-class devotee of the Lord, rājan, O king, pitaram, unto his father, paryatoṣayat, very much pleased. Māyāṁ vividiṣan viṣṇu. Māyāṁ vividiṣan viṣṇu. Māyāṁ vividiṣan viṣṇu. Māyeśasya mahā-muniḥ. Māyeśasya mahā-muniḥ. Māyeśasya mahā-muniḥ. mahā-bhāgavato rājan. mahā-bhāgavato rājan. mahā-bhāgavato rājan. Pitaram paryatoṣayat. Pitaraṁ paryatoṣayat. Pitaraṁ paryatoṣayat. Okay, so Jai Krishna, can you? Māyām vividiṣan viṣṇu. Māyā-īśasya mahā-muniḥ. mahā-bhāgavato rājan. Pitaram paryatoṣayat. One of the ladies. Māyām vividiṣan viṣṇu. Māyeśasya mahā-muniḥ. mahā-bhāgavato rājan. Pitaram paryatoṣayat. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Narada Muni was very much pleased. Narada Muni very much pleased his father and desired to know all about the energies of Viṣṇu, the master of all energies. For Narada was the greatest of all sages and the greatest of all devotees, O king. Purport. Lord Brahma, being the creator of all living beings in the universe, is originally the father of several well-known sons, like Daksha, the catuḥ-sanas, and Nārada. In 3 departments of human knowledge disseminated by the Vedas, namely fruit of work, karma-kāṇḍa, transcendental knowledge, jñāna-kāṇḍa, and devotional service, upāsanā-kāṇḍa, Devarṣi Nārada inherited from his father Brahma devotional service, whereas Daksha inherited from his father fruitive work, and Sanaka, Sanatan, etc. inherited from their father information about jñāna-kāṇḍa, our transcendental knowledge. But out of all of them, Nārada is described here as the most beloved son of Brahma because of good behavior. And Nārada is famous as the greatest of all sages because of his being the greatest of all devotees. Nārada is the spiritual master of many famous devotees of the Lord. He is the spiritual master of Prahlad, Dhruva and Vyāsa, down to the forest animal hunter Kirata. His only business is to turn everyone to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Therefore, all these features of Narada make him the dearmost son of his father, and all of this is due to Narada's being a first-class devotee of the Lord. Devotees are always anxious to know more and more about the Supreme Lord, the Master of all energies, as confirmed in Bhagavad-gītā 10:19. Mat-shita madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam katayantas cha mam nityam tushanti cha ramanti cha. The Supreme Lord is unlimited, and his energies are also unlimited. No one can know them completely. Brahmaji, being the greatest living entity within this universe, and being directly instructed by the Lord, must know more than anyone within this universe, although such knowledge may not be complete. Thus, it is the duty of everyone to ask about the unlimited Lord from the spiritual master in the disciplic succession of Brahma, which descends from Narada to Vyāsa, from Vyāsa to Sukadev, and so on. Can you repeat, please? Narada, sorry, I just got to do something about this mic. Somebody fix it, like push it back, and I'll sleep. It won't stay up because it's unbalanced, and then I can't read. Just pull it back, and then it balances. No, from this thing here. Here, like that. That's great. Okay. Yes, balance makes it a big difference. Okay, so Narada was very much pleased with his father and desired to know all about the energies of Viṣṇu, the master of all energies. For Narada was the greatest of all sages and greatest of all devotees, O king. Do you remember the two words without looking in the transcription? The greatest of all sages, you remember the Sanskrit for that? Mahā-muniḥ, right? And then there used to be a devotee here, mahā-muniḥ. And then the greatest of all devotees is, mahā-bhāgavato. So, Om Jnāna-kāṇḍasya jñāna-sakaya catuḥ-sanas tasmai Sri Gurave namaha. Namo Viṣṇu padaya Krishna prasaya bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskachade Satarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. One more time. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vaivyacha Patitanam Bhavanevim Vyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So the secret purpose the most important Bhagavata, Srimad Bhagavatam. The conclusion of the Bhagavatam has been explained by the original speaker of the Bhagavatam. And that original speaker was also the original speaker of the Srimad Bhagavad-gītā, Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. The other day, Jai Krishna gave a wonderful class. We're giving the parallels of the catuḥ-sloki of the Bhagavatam, as well as the catuḥ-sloki of Bhagavad-gītā. You know, and although quite often it's considered, oh, the Gita is like introductory level, which yes, okay, that's there. But for every introduction, there's some really deep stuff down below. And if you study deeply, you find out that the entry level is pretty deep. And the Bhagavatam takes you further. And then you go into Chaitanya Chaitamrita, and you cannot find a beginning or end. It's so deep. So there's no place, we're just getting this over and over, because it's such an important point, that there is no place for impersonal features in the transcendental world. Although in the material world, there are, that is there, this impersonal feature. You know? Like in the spiritual world, I like pillars, so like the pillars would be persons. Here they're persons because they're part of Krishna's transcendental abode. But, so in the material world, there's same features may be there, but not being infused with spirit, soul, the personalism isn't apparent. In the spiritual world, that's all there is. Even a grain of dust, a particle of sand is person, spiritual. So wherever there's this chaitana, or this knowledge, the personal feature comes in. And in the spiritual world, everything is full of knowledge. You know? And therefore everything in the transcendental world, the land, the water, the trees, the mountains, the river, the man, the animals, the birds, everything is of the same quality, namely this chaitana. And therefore everything is individual and personal. So, we're being taught through these various purports throughout this chapter that should always fix the mind properly. And that means via the parampara system, not through the mental speculation system. And no one should try to give a new interpretation by dint of mundane knowledge. So much knowledge out there. But that knowledge connects us from Krishna. Doesn't even consider Krishna. That is mundane knowledge. It's not to anyone's benefit, ultimately. So the first step in the pursuance of the system of knowledge received by Lord Brahma is to approach a bona fide spiritual master who is the representative of the Lord in the parampara system. And a bona fide spiritual master, by his personal activities, he teaches the disciples the principles of devotional service by his behavior, by his words, by his actions, you know. And by following the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master in conjunction with the principles revealed in the scriptures, then the student will rise. Student means disciple. And Prabhupada used to call us my students. I personally think nowadays it's a better choice of words, given how people are so sensitive to words nowadays. And the disciple gets people like a little uptight. But so in this one purport, probably it's again using that word students. So, and we're all students. We're all students of bhakti here. So by following the instructions of the spiritual master in conjunction with the principles of the revealed scriptures, and again, we can read the same verse and a realized person read the same verse, and we're like, can't think of a word to say. And this realized person can just continue for hours because they're going deeper, deeper, deeper. You know, they have that ultimate beautiful realization of Krishna as the person. But if we follow the instructions of such a personality, then the students will rise to the plane, and as all of us also, to the plane of complete knowledge. And how we know that? It'll be exhibited by detachment from the world of sense gratification. You know. And this detachment from the sensory world, it's called this Brahma-bhuta stage. Brahma-bhuta stage is considered the preliminary stage of transcendental life. Transcendental life meaning that para-bhakti. So the Brahma-bhuta stage in life, it's also known as this Atmarama. You know, familiar also with this Atmarama verse, in which one's fully self-satisfied. So the self-satisfaction is indicated by one who has no hankering for the world of sense enjoyment, that temporal world. And the stage of this full satisfaction is a proper situation for understanding the transcendental knowledge of the personality of Godhead. Rupa Goswami, he said if he could somehow get millions of ears and tongues, that he could relish the spiritual bliss by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And in the Gita, Lord Krishna says, he's situated in everyone's heart, and he helps the living entity to forget and remember. And it's by the Lord's grace within the heart that a devotee becomes inspired. And the inspiration, a lot of times we're hearing, oh, that was so inspiring. Oh, I feel so inspired. But there's no connection to where is that inspiration coming from? You know, some people see a candy store and they get inspired, or the ice cream truck, or, you know, so it's important to, you know, define your inspiration, to know what is that inspiration, where is it coming from? And for the devotees, it's the Lord in the heart. Krishna says that, you know, this Teshasam Satata Yutam, verse 10:10 in the Bhagavad-gītā, that to those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, just with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. And it's also affirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam 1-20 that thus in the completely satisfied stage of life, again exhibited by full detachment from the world of sense enjoyment, as a result of, how does that happen? By performing devotional service, then one can understand the science of God in the liberated stage, and that means love of God, Krishna. So the key is approaching a spiritual master in a mood of submission, inquiring, and then this transmission of knowledge, this bhakti gyan, will occur. And in the Gopal Tapani Upanishads, it's described how the Lord, what he looked like when he appeared in front of Lord Brahma. So it says, Gopa Vishesha me Purusha Purastad Birba Bhuva. So the Lord appeared before Brahma. Like first he couldn't see anything, right? He's on this lotus stem in the darkness. The only sensory activity was this auditory, coming from the ears and within the heart. So the Lord appeared before Brahma as a cowboy. And I love it that Prabhupada used this cowboy term. Immediately, well, I'll finish the sentence and then I'll say something. So the Lord appeared before Brahma as a cowboy. That is the original personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna Govinda, who is later described by Brahma in his Brahma Samhita. So that is that famous verse, Shintamani Prakara Sadman. You all know this verse? Shintamani verse? She knows and say, Shintamani Prakara Sadmana Sukhalpa Vriksha Laksariteshu Surabhi Palyantam Lakshmi Sahasara Satta Sambramamya Sevyamanam Govindamadi Purusham Tamahang Bhajami. So Brahma desired to worship the original personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who resides in the topmost Vaikuntha planet, known as Golok Vrindaban. And there he is in the habit of keeping Surabhi cows as a cowboy, again, and where he's served by hundreds and thousands of Lakshmis, goddess of fortunes, these gopis with love and respect. So, I just have something, I'm checking the time because I want to make sure I can include a particular point. So this Bhagavatam, it's the science of the Lord, in which the Lord and his abode are perfectly realized. In the Gita, it also says in 9.2 that this knowledge is the king of all knowledge, the most secret of all secrets, and the ultimate purifier. Realized by direct perception, this transcendental science is the everlasting, joyfully performed perfection of religious principles. How do people like us get such a gift landing in our hearts? Mercy of Srila Prabhupada and the previous acharyas. So I'm going to mention a personality who recently departed. He was a Zen Buddhist teacher, just I think last week. And his name was Thich Nhat Hanh. Many devotees were commenting on his passage. They, appreciated his mood. He was a Vietnamese Buddhist monk. And for 39 years he was exiled from his country for opposing this Vietnamese war. So this was in '66. So he died, it was actually last Saturday, 1:30 a.m. in his home in Vietnam. He was 95 years old. 2014 he had suffered a severe stroke and it left him heavily paralyzed on his right side. Up until that point he had traveled very heavily. But at that point, he remained in his monastery. So he became one of the world's most influential Zen masters, and through campaigning for peace and urging the practice of what is called mindfulness meditation. Now this mindfulness, we hear it a lot nowadays. He's the father of mindfulness. That's how he's described. And while he was still living in Vietnam, he started a movement called Engaged Buddhism, which combined meditation and anti-war work. So he was establishing these monasteries around the world ultimately. I think the biggest, largest one is in south of France, hospitals and schools. But it was based upon this active meditation, mindfulness meditation. And it was fueled by a war, this Vietnamese war. So he entered this type of teaching as a novice. He was 16 years old. So he was a long haul. And during the Vietnam War, he was among the monks and nuns who were tasked with, by the government, with deciding whether or not to remain meditating within their monasteries or to provide aid to those who were being affected by the war. So this is where his life took a pivotal step. He decided to do both. What was seeming like either you stay in your monastery or you can go out and do some practical work. Like in Columbus, we used to have Saturdays, it was called Bhagavatam Class in Action. We did some practical work while listening to the Bhagavatam. So he was of that mind. And he decided to do both, and then he started this Engaged Buddhism movement. He traveled widely to the United States, and he was taught in Cambridge and Princeton. And he founded a school of youth and social services, like a kind of a grassroots organization, but he had like 10,000 volunteers. It was all based on the Buddhist principles of nonviolent and compassionate service. So he was quite a conveyor of love. And this is what attracted people. He said, to love means, or understanding is love's other name. If you don't understand, you can't love. So this is one of his principal teachings. And to love means to learn the art of nourishing our happiness. So he had these principles like that. And he gave a really nice example, that if you pour a handful of salt in a cup of water, the water becomes undrinkable. I mean, anybody can understand that, right? But if you pour salt into a river, people can continue to draw the water to cook, wash, drink. The river is so immense, and it has the capacity to receive, to embrace, transform. So he said, but our hearts are small. Our understanding of compassion is limited. Therefore we suffer. We can't accept or tolerate others and their shortcomings. And we demand that they change. But when our hearts expand, these same things don't make us suffer anymore. And we have a lot of compassion and understanding, and we can embrace others. And we can accept others as they are, and then have a chance to transform. So that's why to love means to learn the art of nourishing our happiness. And understanding is love's other name. If you don't understand, you can't love. So this all sounds really attractive. Like nowadays, it's really attractive for people to have these little sound bites of 3 to 4 words. There's no actual description of a message. It kind of started with a movie. I mean, the movie's name was Eat, Pray, Love, something like that. And after that, these 3-word sound bites, and that's getting a little expanded into 4. But there's nothing behind it. It just sounds good, and it is good. But hey, how do you get there? So he's saying these wonderful things. But how do you get there? Where do you find this love? What is this love? Where does it come from? So what is our understanding of the source of love as taught by Srila Prabhupada? So earlier I was in the Govindam prayers. So the description is that Govinda, so we have a person very fond of playing the flute. Venam means a flute. This Venam Kavantam Maravinda Dalaya Takshan, and his eyes are just like spreading lotus petals. So I'm going to be speaking here from Prabhupada because it's so beautiful, Prabhupada's words. And sometimes when we paraphrase them, it kind of moves over to the side of the road. So I was listening to this yesterday and realizing actually it was September 1868, so it was just shortly after we left to go to England. We left at the end of August, went to Montreal, and so just shortly after that time, he was in Montreal when we went there, and then he came to San Francisco, and he was speaking these beautiful discourse about love from the Brahma Samhita. And hopefully I'm not going to get, okay, this came up, let's see. So I'll just give a little taste of Prabhupada here. If anybody wants, I can give you how to find it. Or you can look up San Francisco, September 68, Srila Prabhupada. It's the he starts out with the 34th verse, which is Chintamani, that verse. So, the description of Govinda playing the flute, his beautiful eyes, this is all coming from Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma, just like I'm sitting here seeing Jai Krishna, and he has on an orange hat and a blue face mask, glasses, a blue sweater, I'm seeing these things in real life, time. And so then I describe as I'm seeing. And there was Lord Brahma seeing Lord Krishna and giving this incredible description, Dasa Brahma Samhita, And where else do you find this? Sometimes, it's easy to be a little proud, but we should be really humbled by what we have been exposed to, what we are being exposed to. And we shouldn't just be satisfied to be inspired. We should be inspired to show our gratitude. That's another big word, the G word nowadays, oh, I'm so grateful, yada, yada. Okay, be grateful, show it, do something. That is gratitude, not, I'm filled up with gratitude. Do something, show that gratitude, So, Lord Brahma saw the beautiful Lord. He was filled with gratitude, and he began describing in such a beautiful, poetical way the personality of Godhead. And describes his complexion, this Varhavatam Samasitam Mada Buddha Sundarangan. His complexion of the body is blackish, just like clouds. Only we can't even really understand like the blackish, just like we say Krishna is bluish. But we're talking about the transcendental world. So the black and blue of the transcendental world is not the flat line black and blue here, even if, we have these iridescent colors. And that's maybe a little closer. But it's not what it really is. It's a vibrancy that we can't even understand. Prabhupada described it as scintillating one time. So his complexion is, he's blackish. And he's so beautiful, he's all attractive. And here in the material world, sometimes we're thinking blackish. Of course, now that's changed a bit, but we want, there's a big push for a more fair complexion, especially from people from a certain country that we really like. And recently, the father of a young girl in the entertainment industry, so his former partner was black-bodied and he was not. So the girl was more looking like the mother. And they had a split up. He gained custody of the girl, and he was going through these treatments, like the girl's like not even 10 years old, to lighten her skin so he'd look more like her. The poor mother, she had to take him to court to stop that because of those, unfortunate concept, But Krishna, the original person, he's blackish, but we just don't understand spiritual colors. And then this Kandara Pakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham, his beauty is surpassing millions of cupids. And Prabhupada said, you've heard of Cupid? He's a very enchanting person, a loving person. And Krishna's beauty is surpassing millions of these. And if you assemble all the cupids in one place, still, it can't be compared with the beauty of Krishna. Krishna is so beautiful. So, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord who's adept in playing on his flute with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head bedecked with a peacock feather, with the figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids. And Prabhupada said, so just imagine the position of Krishna conscious person. Everyone is worshipping somebody. Somebody is worshipping his wife. Somebody is worshipping their husband. Somebody is worshipping the leader of the country. Somebody is worshipping something. And if anyone has nothing, then somebody is worshipping a dog or a cat. But we are worshipping the original person, Krishna. Just see our position. This Govindam Mari Purusam Tamahang Bhajami. We're not flattering ordinary things. We have captured the original. Govindam Mari Purusam Tamahang Bhajami, and Prabhupada says, and why not? He's so beautiful and calling us. How's he calling us? By playing on his flute, a nice flute. And when he's playing his flute, the gopis, they would all give up their families and everything and go to Krishna. Krishna, their father, their brother, their husbands would call them, where are you going? It's the dead of night. No, we are going to Krishna. So Krishna is so nice, just to attract us, that you want love. Here at Vrindaban, he appears in Vrindaban, and he shows his leelas, his activities, just to attract us. A lovable object. You're trying to find out something lovable. We're all trying, aren't we? We all want that. You're being frustrated. This was exactly what was happening in the 60s when Prabhupada showed up. We were all out there. We want love. Love and peace, brother. Love and peace, sister. And it wasn't happening, and we were definitely getting frustrated. And here's Prabhupada talking. You're being frustrated. Here is something complete. If you love, you will become complete. And this Govinda can be achieved simply by love. You don't require any other qualification. He's so great. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the proprietor of everything. But what does he want from us? So in the Gita, he tells us, pitaraṁ puṣam palam māyāṁ yomi bhakya prayasate. One offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit or water, I will accept it. So we can worship Krishna like that. He's not a beggar, he's not a beggar, but still in one sense, he's begging us, he's begging our love. And therefore he says that pitaraṁ puṣpam palam toyam yomi bhakya prayasati. Offer with love, devotion, I will accept. So, Prabhupada, I have to move along here. So Prabhupada was saying that this Krishna worship, it's not a costly affair. Simply have to decide, I shall love only Krishna. And if you love only Krishna, you will actually love everything. If you love only Krishna, you will actually love everything because you are loving the root. And he gives an example, if you supply foodstuff to the stomach, then the whole body is nourished. And the verse from the Bhagavatam from 4:31-14, by pouring water on the root of a tree, it energizes the trunk, the branches, twigs, everything, just as supplying food to the stomach enlivens the senses and the limbs of the body. Simply worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead through devotional service automatically satisfies the demigods who are part of that Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then he commented, here it was, 68, at the present moment, and that present moment is like every moment fast forward, some are captivated by human welfare activities. Oh, what human welfare activities should they do? It's not in our power. We can do something, but very limited. So there are living entities, and they're not human beings. And he mentions 8,400,000 living entities. And the human living entities, only 400,000. Of the other ones, 8 million. So it's not difficult to understand. If you take a census of the living entities and use the city of San Francisco, because that's where he was speaking, then the census of the human entities residing in this city, there'll be a very small number in comparison to the birds, the bees, the aquatics, and so many other living entities. So in the Bhagavatam, again, watering the root of the tree. And in the same way, you can serve all the limbs of the body that way. And similarly, by loving Krishna, you can learn how to love everyone. If you don't love Krishna, and if you love the whole universe, it's still imperfect. It's imperfect, and because we're not loving Krishna, therefore we're sectarian. And then he makes a very strong statement. Take for example, your country, or any country. Doesn't matter. I'm giving an example. I'm not attacking anyone. I'm giving an example. You love your countrymen. That's very nice. But why don't you love the cows of your country? Cows is also a living entity. They're also born in this country. Have they not the right to live? Oh, an argument. In logic, they'll accept yes. But because we do not love Krishna, therefore, in partiality, that one section of living entities should be loved. And in another section of the living entities, they should be sent to the slaughterhouse. Prabhupada says, why this defect? This defect is due to lack of loving affairs with Krishna. And as soon as we try to love Krishna, then we'll see, oh, the cows are my brothers. Oh, the black persons, they're my brothers. The white people are my brothers. The ants are my brothers. The dogs are my brothers. The trees are my brothers. Everyone is brother. That is universal brotherhood. If we simply talk universal brotherhood, but we don't love Krishna, Prabhupada goes, then it's useless. It's just useless. And actually, it is happening. They're proclaiming peace and prosperity, and they're fighting in the United Nations, but where is the peace? Where is the prosperity? Because lacking of love of Krishna. And therefore, this Krishna consciousness is an urgent necessity for human society. We should learn how to love Krishna, then everything will be adjusted very easily. It's not a utopian theory. It is practical. There's so many instances, and there are those who are following. The students in our society, ask them how they love others, how they love everyone. It's because they're trying to love Krishna. Govindam Haripurusham Tamaham Vajami. Therefore, our process, try to love the original person, and as soon as you do, you become an expert lover. Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai. I managed to get this. So, Jai Krishna, sorry about this. Jai Krishna will take over from here. And thank you very much, Hare Krishna.
Malati Prabhu Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So I propose we go around and comment or summarize what have been the essence of Malati's class. Who would like to start? Anything you have been touched or you would like to add, or what was the essence of her class? We have the mic? No. We are doing it all together. You can ask questions and we answer all together.
So I really appreciated when Madam Malati said that everything, but especially one thing she said, we shouldn't interpret scriptures with the mundane knowledge, with the mundane philosophy. And actually I had a question in this regard. Recently I've been reading many, Srimad Bhagavatam, but also different books, like psychology books, and it just so many things are related to Krishna consciousness. How do I know that I'm not misinterpreting and just making up something?
If I understood properly, the question is that there are many books related to Krishna consciousness, and your question is, how do we know that we are not deviated from the essence? You know? Anybody would like to answer? Okay. Bhagavad-gītā.
Well, I think as I understood the question, I think that just your good intelligence bring to bear, work it as well as possible. When we're young devotees, it's easy to get confused about a lot of things. So as time goes on, and the more you read Srila Prabhupada's books, the more you'll be able to look at something else and immediately understand what's related and what's not. I remember that after 10 years or so, I was taking trips to bookstores and stuff, and I would go over to the Eastern book section, and I would look through all the books, and I would try to make some comparisons. And I think that's what you're doing maybe. And I would pull a book down and I would open it up and read it, and many, many times I remember within moments I would be like, this book is just junk compared to what I learned from Srila Prabhupada and his books and my understanding. So bringing your intelligence to bear, and in time it will get better and better and better, and then you won't be confused about anything in time. And that's my own personal experience, and I'm sure that that will happen to anybody.
Thank you, Bhagavad-gītā. Yes, I would also add that, of course, first I would look that the book is coming from the parampara, you know. Somebody who is initiated.
She's not talking about books. She's not talking about books.
Psychology books.
Outside books. Okay. Self-help books, this kind of stuff.
Yeah, let's say 80% of devotees have jobs outside, right? And
Yeah.
They have to read different things. Devotees also read different things for their work. So how to not to deviate from, like also Madam Malati mentioned, we're not supposed to look for under meaning or something like that, she said. I kind of see it as interpreting also.
Yeah.
For another meaning,
Yeah.
because for another meaning in the scriptures, I remember Srila Prabhupada was saying how, like Mayavadis, they would say that this first verse in Bhagavad-gītā, Dharma Kurukshetra, that Srila Prabhupada gives this exact explanation, and then some impersonalists and Mayavadi philosophers, they would say, oh, it relates to a body, like something like that. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That how not to.
Yeah. You know, I think first of all we have to see that whenever we see in this world, they are actually transporting a philosophy, you know. You look at the billboards, huh? It's a philosophy behind. It makes you happy if you have this car or this clothing or this watch, you know. So that starts there. Second one, if you look at the news, huh? They're transporting a message or a philosophy behind, because the way the journalist writes is based on his personal philosophy, you know. And he thinks about happiness in this world, you know. I can be happy, completely happy in this world, you know, if just this would be a just, you know. So that's the next step. And then if you go to the books, it's clear again, you know. You know, you have all this romantic literature or this or that, whatever. There is always the philosophy actually they sell or they transport with what they're writing, you know. And it's based on their consciousness they have, you know. And of course, we heard the basics always of Krishna consciousness, you know. It's all about Krishna and be completely purified, not be entangled anymore, serve 100%. She said Brahma Buddha platform, you know, complete free of any entanglement, whatever. So that's the comparison we have to do, you know. But I think the question is very relevant because, you know, I have to say, I look every day at the news because I want to know what's going on and think it has made an impact on the temple or whatever. But we have just to be aware that there is always a philosophy they sell, you know, conscious or unconscious, you know, because they write the way they see it, you know, and that's their philosophy behind, and maybe the channel philosophy of the material world, you know. But we have to have the other perspective from Krishna consciousness, you know.
Doesn't mean that we can take it deeper. Like if we take even like mundane philosophy, not philosophy, but okay, let's say psychological books, we can take it deeper, relating it to God. Would it mean interpretation?
we can connect, of course, everything to God, but at the same time, we have to know that Srila Prabhupada says so many times, the scientists, they're never complete, and they always change. Huh? They may find some pattern, but I think Shyamasundara and Srila Prabhupada have been discussing Western philosophies, even the main German ones and the Austrian one, what's his name, who relates everything to sexual propensities, yes, and so on, So also in this self-help books or in the psychology, it's the same basic foundation, They have an understanding which is limited based on the material world and on the scientists who are actually proposing this kind of stuff. And therefore, it has to be really taken very cautiously, Thank you.
Mother Shalagram said that we see if it's benefiting us in our Krishna consciousness, we can take with caution, and if we are not mature, because later on as we progress we can discern and see, as we are fixed in Krishna consciousness, we will see if it's taking us away or actually bringing us closer to Krishna. But what's the word? But in this case, we take what's helpful.
We hear you.
I know, but it sounds different than normally. And initially we just need guidance to see, so we are not going too far.
I would support that we have to use everything in Krishna service. So if I look at a video how to fix a car or a video how to install a window, I can use this in Krishna service, But
it's not using sometimes it's Krishna. It's different if it's helping me to control my mind, to be more of service. So in that context, right, if I'm more balanced and stable, right, so that's helpful. That's what Mother Shalagram was saying. But then we need to see there is the fine line so we don't cross it and get more absorbed into those things, get lost it. So that's why it's the guidance. And as we mature, we just are able to discern by ourselves.
Anything else?
I like really what she was quoting, this monk. How do you say his name? I always want. Touch? This Vietnamese monk. Love starts with understanding. I just really appreciate that because it's just a practicality of, yes, I like you, I love you, but that's so important to try to understand person before we judge, before we have our opinions, and it's so easy to do that without trying to understand already, at least my mind, I know better, right?
I liked what she said in this regard is that he was an active, she spoke about active Bhagavatam, or active gratitude, It's not just a sort of what can I say, inactive feeling or inactive understanding, And she said, he was an active monk, not just, what can I say, in his ivory tower and just looking for himself. So he was going further. I think that was a nice aspect. Okay, thank you so much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.